And it took about a year for you to start to get some clarity. Like, how did you figure out who to focus on? Because that's always one of the hardest decisions for any founder to make.
Oh man, we've done it so many. It's a continuous process constantly. And like we just did another wave of it and it was like eye opening. And then we compared it against like the positioning that we did 6 months ago when we just did it. And we're like, oh my gosh, this is so different. Largely because the large language models like came into fruition and GPT-4 just got released yesterday. And like the world is changing under our feet. So that was part of it. But we're constantly doing a qualitative research process of talking to our customers and our users. It's just the way we go about it and what those interview guides are and what we're looking for. That usually changes as we've evolved over time because you go from the early days where you're just trying to do something called evaluative research. I actually have a blog post on this. If you go to mgadams.com, I don't write a lot. So it's like the second blog post, but it's under the founder's guide to understanding your users. And I wrote this like 2 years into Grain, having gone through kind of phase one, which was like, first thing you need to do is, have this kind of evaluative test to make sure that what you're doing is even, a problem that people, want solved. And then you kind of need to do, different series of tests. But at the beginning, you're kind of going from nothing, putting it in front of people's faces. And you should read the mom test if you haven't, anybody on this podcast, because Rob Fitzpatrick really enlightened me around like how when you do that work, if you present too much of yourself with it, people will like try to protect you and they'll like say, they won't tell you the truth. They'll be like, oh, I think it's actually, I would totally use this. And they're like, never going to use it. So what we would do is we would actually distance ourselves. We built this like, especially when we did that kind of pivot about a year in, we ran this process pretty rigorously. We brought people into our office and we just had them like go through it. And we pretended like it was somebody else's product and we didn't even build it. And we were the third parties that were just like trying to get feedback for somebody else. So they were like, oh yeah, I hate this. I love this. And that was like huge because the first time we went around, it was our friends and they were all like, oh yeah, this is the greatest thing ever. But it didn't really give us the clarity that we needed to know exactly who we were building for or what the roadmap should look like. And so we knew it was definitely like a leaping moment when we did that. I would say we threw all the code base away from the first year and we started over from scratch on that insight I mentioned. That process we ran that was like, I would say more rigorous and better at distancing and getting that truth and just really understanding whether or not putting something in front of people, they would use it and why. That was the foundation of kind of the next phase of the business. And then I would say we launched that into the world and COVID hit and we actually had like 7 or 8 YC companies that all got funded that were literally just doing what we had like launched and pushed in the market about a month after COVID. And yeah, it was kind of a wild time. And so then all of a sudden you're in this world where you're like, whoa, like clearly if we're having like YC companies literally rip off everything about our website and then copy every feature that we do, like we, just word for word and pixel for pixel, basically, we're clearly have solved something in this kind of second phase. So then what you're looking for is that kind of like more around the product market fit. You're like, clearly we built something of substance and value that people care about, but like who cares about it most? Who's willing to pay the most? What are the messages that resonate with them? What are the features that they need? And then how does it grow inside of an organization? And that's been, I would say, the subsequent set of qualitative processes that we've run. And not to shill my own product, but we use our own product for that, which is like, we literally couldn't do that if we didn't have all of those meetings being recorded. Because like our head of product, Jeff, will go and interview 15 people. So he interviewed he just did this one, interviewed 15 of our top 40 accounts. And we had an interview guy that was trying to understand the commonality between them because they're very different. Like our user profile is, because it's horizontal, it's not clear exactly who is using it for what. And we ran that qualitative process and oh my gosh, by the end of it, I watched all of them. He watched all of them. We were like clipping out the moments and then collaborating and building our hypotheses. And then we realized like something that was insanely counterintuitive that honestly, I had no idea was rooted in reality until I heard like 10 of our top customers say it in the exact same way, like just over and over again. And I was like, okay, I didn't realize that we were actually like valued in that way more so than this way that I thought we were valued before.